Hello. I'd like to say good morning, but I know because of how long it takes to upload these videos to YouTube, they won't be available till late evening, mid-evening. It's been averaging me about 12 hours. Now, it's not just YouTube. It's because I try to upload them through the cellular service. I have 5G, so I would think that it would go quicker, but it doesn't. I don't connect to outside wireless connect points, so I just use my thing. So anyway, over the course of the day while I'm at work, only 24% of the video gets uploaded. The balance of it finishes uploading when I get home, once I connect to my home Wi-Fi, which goes very quickly, less than an hour to finish it. So it seems like I'm just wasting battery trying to upload it during the day. So again, I didn't make copy for today, but I went a step closer to writing copy, things to talk about for my viewer. So I scratched down a couple of ideas, things that maybe he thought I'd talk about, maybe he suggested, and they are God, time travel, existential dread, slide rules, and determinism. Probably won't talk about them in that order, and two of them are kind of linked together. But oh no, the light's not on. What time is it? 5:29. What are the odds that McDonald's open? McDonald's is open. They just don't have the light on. Let's find out. Because they have the lights in the store on, they just don't have the sign on. Let's see what happens. I saw somebody pull in just ahead of me, and they're not going through the drive-thru. They are parking. Nope, they're driving around like a maniac. Hello? No dice. There's people in there, but they're not open yet. It's unfortunate. So God, this will be the definitive on all of these subjects, so nothing will ever have to be said on any of them again by anyone. I wasn't raised in a religious home. My stepfather was Roman Catholic, my mother was public. I really wasn't exposed to religion until I was older, like significantly older, like, I don't know, 7, 10, something. So I really became, till the world started to collide. Till I was at that age when, like, you know, the reality of religion started to hit. I was shielded from it pretty well. And I think that did two things. Like, I often say I'm upset that I wasn't exposed to religion at a young age, because I feel like because of the type of person I am, it precluded me from being a very religious person. I have a very hard time believing in God on faith alone. And that's because I've always been a very analytical, scientific method kind of guy. Like, I gotta prove it. I gotta know it's true. I need to know how it works. And God isn't something you can prove. It's a pointless argument to try to convince. Most of the time, I mean, who knows? It may work, but when you have an argument or debate between someone who believes in God and someone who doesn't believe in God, they're not. I don't think they're fighting the same war, because they're arguing from two different base points. Like I said, like, you know, to someone who's logical, or not logical, to someone who's analytical, and like likes to have reasons for everything, the same argument that someone would use for religion, someone else would just write off to, like, like evolution. Evolution is an example. Like, again, depending on what flavor of your religion you are, like, God created this perfect body, and then there's the school of thought that it evolved. I'm not saying they're both mutually exclusive. I'm just saying that I can't believe in God on faith alone, because, and it's paradoxically, it's God's fault. Because if there is a God, he designed me in such a way that I need critical analysis of something before I'll just blindly believe in it. As you get older, it gets easier just because you get bombarded by nonsense in the news and you end up believing some of the dumbest stuff you can imagine. Most of us probably walk around every day believing tons and tons of nonsensical, non-true stuff just because we've been indoctrinated or bombarded with it every day. But my point is, because I wasn't exposed to it, and I don't use this word disparagingly. I just, I don't have a way with word. But since I wasn't brainwashed or indoctrinated into religion at a very young age, it wasn't part of my life that I could just compartmentalize and say, okay, I'm me, this is my religion, so it's strange coming from a witch, I know, but so the belief in God thing is, again, to sum it up, is I don't disbelieve in God. Like, it's highly probable. Like, obviously I know that we're not hyper intelligent beings. We're very limited in brain capacity and experience. Like, we see the world. When we're young, we think we can see everything, but like, obviously we're just seeing, like, what we can see with our eyes is such an insignificant sliver of the light band. We think we see everything because that we again, it comes back to a lot of times you don't know what you don't know, and it's just amazing what percentage of the spectrum we don't see. X-rays, ultraviolet, the whole gamut. Like, we have a very limited experience. Like, I'm using the eyes as an example because if you look at the light band and then you look at how thin the visible light is, what we can perceive, it's crazy. Like, heat gives off light, but not the kind of light we can see. So, like, if you put your hand on the window and then you look at the window, if you could perceive more, you would actually see the warmth of your hand that was on the window. I won't go too much into that because I'm pretty sure my viewer understands those concepts and is very familiar with them. I have one of the smartest viewerships out there, because I have a viewer, and I know him pretty well, and he's a very smart guy, so I won't dwell on this too long. I think I pretty much covered it. That's all I wanted to say about God and, like, my views on God and why it's always been a bizarre thing for me. Like, I used to, I said that was what I was going to say, but it really used to bother me for years. It's something that would, like, live in my head rent-free for a very long time, constantly throwing it around, trying to analyze it, and until I came to the realization, like, you're trying to analyze the smell of purple. It's just, you can't attack it in a you can't use the scientific method on it because there's nothing to test. Like, there's not, it's kind of funny. It's untestable in the same way that physics seems to mess with us. Every time we try to find, like, loopholes in the speed of light, it's almost like the universe conspires to fill these tiny holes. Like, when it comes to time travel, like, there's certain things you would need to accomplish for time travel to happen. As you discover ways to do it, physics finds a way to fill it in. And I know it's not, physics isn't reactive. It is what it is, we think. It's not changing just to mess with us. Could be, but that's highly unlikely. I guess do I leap into determinism from here, or do I leap into time travel itself? Because I think it would be funnier if I go to determinism first, because then the time travel thing gets thrown into sharp relief how ridiculous it is. My thoughts on that, if I'm deterministic. So we'll go that route. Let me try to be able to see through the front window for a moment by turning on the front fan. Okay. So my view on the universe as a whole, I'm deterministic, and I think that comes, it's a hard habit to break from early on Newtonian physics, like every action has an equal and opposite reaction. All that nonsense means that you should be able to trace any system back to its origin. If that's the case, then that kind of eliminates free will, because everything that you do, everything you say, think, it's all chemical reactions, and they're reacting to other things. So although it's a chaotic environment, I don't believe that any of this is by choice or we have free will. I don't believe in time either, which is going to make the time travel thing I talk about later seem a little ridiculous. I believe everything happened at once. Like, not only do I believe everything's deterministic, I believe it already happened. I believe in the nature of the universe, the way it was created, the massive expansion, which gave rise to gravity. It's a complex thing that's way over my pay grade. But like, when I'm sitting down and I have all of my notes in front of me, I have this ridiculous book. It's a binder I've been keeping since I was a teenager, because I was fascinated with time travel. So I've been following, the news and physics, quantum physics, astronomy, astrophysics. I read up on Einstein and a bunch of other guys like Tesla. Tesla's not really related to this so much. He just had a lot of good stuff. But I did a lot of reading. I watch a lot of, like, on a daily basis, I will watch some boring thing about either math or physics. So anyway, my point was that because of the way I was taught early on, I believe that everything's deterministic, meaning that you really don't have a say. And then people will say, well, yeah, but you have free will. You could, like, decide to flip a coin or not flip a coin, or drive to work, not drive to work. And yes, I get your point that you feel like you're making that decision, but whatever you do was going to happen. Whatever happens is going to happen. Like, and then people say, well, why do anything? Well, because you're going to. It's almost one of those things where, like, my argument is very weak, but if you do nothing, you're going to wither away and die. I mean, and then, like, of course, my argument is like, well, if you wither away, if you sit there, do nothing, don't eat, and just wither away and die, that was going to happen. Like, that, I know that's extremely weak on my part, and I hate to say, like, we don't want that to happen. Like, we would prefer not to be in pain, not to be hungry, to have money, to do things. But so it's hard to separate what appears to be free will from just a preset environment. And the part, I think, that makes it difficult is that we have the ability to analyze ourselves. We have self-awareness and consciousness, which is a very complex thing in the animal kingdom. To be self-aware, and being self-aware, I don't think means you have free will. It tricks you into thinking you have free will because you have the ability to name free will, define what it is, and if you can do that, you think you have it, but it's not really there. Everything you do is determined. I'm not saying this is true. My belief is that everything you do is predetermined. It's all happened. The end of the universe has already happened, but due to the way the universe was started, there's this dilation in the creation of time and space that we, for some reason, get to experience in a linear fashion, which to us is going forward and makes sense to all our physics. Like, you wouldn't expect a glass to pull together, jump up off the floor into your hand instead of going the other way, breaking into a billion pieces. So it all makes sense to us. I can't explain any of the whys or wherefores. Why do we experience time in this direction? Why do we have self-awareness? Why did all this happen? I mean, it could be a fluke. And then again, like, there's always the simulation with brains in jars, or we're a brain in a jar just creating all these little cells, or there's computers, like we're a simulation, we're a super advanced species has either created the simulation to try to see where they came from, or we're just a big alien ant farm. Anyway, I think that's really all I want to touch on with determinism for now, because without someone to debate here, like, I may not be making sense. I know what I'm trying to say. I know the point I'm trying to get across, but again, my way with word is not always the best, so I might not be entirely clear. Here's where we almost had the accident the other day. Today, no accident today. Not exactly sure what I was doing wrong the other day, but I did pull out a little. We were fine, but I should have given the guy more of a gap. I should have yielded better. I didn't yield well.
How can I help you?
Hi, a large black coffee, please.
Large black coffee, anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, hold on.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. Ah, crap, I knocked it off. Ow, ow, ow. That's quite all right. You too, thank you very much. It's not okay. I should have warned her. I could see that the lid wasn't on very well. This does not bother me at all. You know what really bothers me? When they accidentally put cream or sugar in my coffee. Oh my God. That is like the worst. Like ruins your whole week. Oh, there's wasted coffee everywhere. Determinism. I gotta get these phones out of my pocket. Slide rules. Let me jump into slide rules for a second. So, I'm running this YouTube channel for my viewer, and one of my little experiments was doing just trying to think of simple little videos to do. Like I've got a lot of interest. There's a lot of things I know. Like most of it's boring, but I don't care. And slide rules. I did a crappy little video on how to multiply, how to use slide rules to multiply. And my intention is to actually go back, redo that video. And one of the reasons is that actually ended up getting a lot of views. Which worries me because I didn't really want a big audience, and I have to rethink how I'm going to continue the channel, which I don't want to have if I'm going to start getting views, because that was never the intention. I didn't want to have views. It's one of those bizarre things. I'm very, like I said, I think in an earlier video, I'm very easily manipulated, and certain things like this I will do as a joke. Again, I'm the only one that sees the humor in it. Matt asked me to do YouTube videos, so it's like kind of a spite thing. You want me to do videos? I'll do videos. So now I'm doing at least an hour of video, at least on the days where I have to go to work during my morning ride. Instead of keeping up with the news and things like that, I'm just going to keep doing these videos and doing little shorts and trying to find a voice, get good at doing this, and then just walk away from it. So yeah, on the analytics, my slide rule thing was off the chart, and a lot of it comes from, like, I am surprised that there are so many people searching for information about slide rules. So to Matt's point, I will go through and make an entire series, and I'll probably come up with a different title for it, and I'll just title it something slide rule, and then what I'm telling about it, like whether it's any of the functions, multiplication, division, logarithms, things like that. And then, the history, the uses, interesting stories in the past. involving slide rules, because it seems like there's interest out there. I don't know how many people out there still know how to use slide rules. I didn't need a slide rule growing up. Electronic calculators were already out there. I just thought they were neat. I found them interesting. So I only know how to use a slide rule because I taught myself how to use a slide rule. It wasn't because I needed to, which is probably the most horrible thing anyone has ever said in history. And I am ashamed. But that's it. I just two things. One, I am going to do more on slide rules. Try to put out some quality content because apparently there's a need for it out there. I haven't searched myself because I never really needed to look up videos on slide rules. There may be tutorials out there. I'm afraid to look before I do mine because I don't want to be influenced. Like I have an idea in my head of what the format is I want to do, and if I see someone else doing something similar, I don't want to accidentally copy them, copy their content. Like I don't want to lose my voice. Not that I have a YouTube voice yet. I have still extremely uncomfortable in this medium. Nervous about every video. Like I've only been doing this for a little while, and like I said, I'm over analytical, and people at work may or may not have started to see my videos. They think they're clever, or I overthink situations by dropping little hints and things like that and not coming out and saying it. So like I said, I'm nervous. Like I don't think I say anything in the videos other than the fact that I have crushing social anxiety. I really don't like being in front of a lot of people, even virtually. Like just the idea that they see me, this is making myself a little more vulnerable than I would like. Having these one-ended conversations with air. Kind of with my viewer. This coffee isn't even sitting in here right. Oh, it's going to be a bad coffee day. So I went to Wawa for coffee today. Before I get back into, I think I covered most of the things. I covered God, so that's done. Time travel I haven't really gotten to. Existential dread, I always have to look up what that means. I don't know why. I think I have a mental block. I have it. I can never really define it well. It's one of those things like, there's another concept that everyone knows, but if you ask them to describe it, they and I can't remember what it is. If I remember it later, I'll mention it, but it's existential dread is not one of those things. It's clearly defined. Everyone knows what it is. I wrote it down just so I could make fun of myself for not being able to define it clearly, and being afraid of flubbing my way through it and just being way off. Slide rules, determinism. I guess I'm stuck at time travel. So forget everything you've heard about determinism and God and things like that. Slide rules. So time travel, like I said, I keep a binder. I've been very interested in time travel. Like I think I went over that earlier, and people joke with me like it's been a joke since I was a kid. Like people make fun of me. Like I make these jokes about making a time machine with cardboard tubes, some raisins, some grape Kool-Aid. That's just a running gag. But like I said, I've been not studying, cursory research, Googling stuff, reading books, watching videos when they're available. Like I was interested in this stuff before there was an internet. Back in the day, before the real intertubes that you guys are used to today, there used to be like bulletin board systems and chat thing. I ran multiple bulletin board systems. I ran Flying Circus BBS, and I also had a chat system, a 7-line I forget how many baud it was. It was ridiculous. You could type quicker than the baud, but it was an Apple. I used to have an Apple II with a bunch of AppleCat modems in it, and I used to run a pirate version of Diversity Dial in Philadelphia called Improbability Factor. Me and my buddy used to run it out of my bedroom. My parents thought I was running numbers or dealing drugs because I had two boxes outside my bedroom window with 10 phone lines coming in. So I had 10 phone numbers. As a teenager, I used to get phone bills well over $1,000 a month, because what I used to do is I would take my D-dial, I would take the 7th line, and I would dial out to places like long distance, like in not California, Canada, Wisconsin, whatever. I would like dial into Nuclear Greenhouse. So Flying Circus and Nuclear Greenhouse would link up, and what you could do is instead of having like a 7-line chat, you would have like a 13-line chat or something like that, or 12, because what we would do is we would give up one of the modem lines so that we could link together, and then you would have the other, like, so now we each have 6 left, so you'd have 12 channels. So 12 people could dial in, like literally dial in if they had an acoustic coupler, but you could dial in, call the D-dial, and then you could chat with your friends on, like, it was literally, like, we didn't have smartphones, so this was a way of texting live to each other. And I ran that for a few years. It was expensive. I did a lot of silly things when I was a kid that were really expensive, but there was 3 major, I consider myself one of the major ones. There was SF and AI. I think it was Savage Frontiers, and I can't remember what AI stood for, artificial intelligence. And was it AI and SF, and I think it was AI, Altered Imaginations. I think that's what it was. So Savage Frontiers and Altered Imaginations were the big ones in Philly. Then I believe I bought some equipment off of Cosmo, and then I got the equipment off of Cosmo, but I didn't get the software. I got the software off of a guy who calls himself Gandalf. I got a mini tape deck, and in it was a mini tape, and that was the software for the Diversity Dial system. So in order to load it up, like if it ever crashed, you had to start from the beginning. So it was an acoustic, like you literally had to play the program into the computer. So to start up my D-dial, I would have to set up all the equipment, set up the thing, plug in the phone lines, get the computer up and running, and then I would have to load this tape into it. So I would have to play it. I can't remember how long it was, 20 minutes, 40 minutes, something like that. I may even had to have played an A and B side. I don't remember. But so after that plays in and loads the program, then you run the program, and then you've got your D-dial system up. And then it had like a bunch of like things. You would get a handle by typing like a /H. There's an active D-dial community right now. I'm a member. I've forgotten my password. Me and my friend who ran my D-dial are both members there, but we very rarely go on. I like running a D-dial. I don't like, kind of like playing D&D. I like running the game. I don't like so much being in the game. So I ran the D-dial. It was very interesting because you learn a lot about human behavior. Now, maybe not a lot, but you notice some things about human behavior. It was very interesting. People, I think in general, are very lonely. Like, and it's unfortunately the world is run by an unfortunate set of bizarre coincidences, a lot of which we're never made aware of because you're not observing them. And one of the things, like, I used to be in the room with the D-dial running, and I would see people log on to the D-dial, and they would log on, they would stay, like every once in a while they would say something, but they wouldn't have to, because you know if somebody else is there, you see the login. Unless, of course, you've got M slots running, which means every once in a while you would have a text come up the screen. Basically, they're kind of like they're like pop-up ads, but it's just like every once in a while, like just like there's these M slots, and you could fill them out with text, and they would just randomly pop up on the screen every so often. I don't know if it was random or if it was a set rotation. Probably a set rotation. So Anyway, people would log into the D-Dial, and they would sit there. Like, some people would sit there either for hours or 45 minutes, and I'd be either doing my homework or doing some other thing in the room, just existing. I was a very solitary person, and I would watch. I wouldn't always interact with the people. I'm not a very people-y person, and like, they wouldn't say a lot. Like, it's not like I was ignoring other people with existential dread and loneliness, but what would very often happen is the person would stay on for a very long period of time. Not just one person, multiple people do this. They'd stay on, like I said, 20 minutes, 45, a couple of hours, and then they would finally log off, say, this place is dead, log off, and literally not 30 seconds later, someone else would log in, and the whole cycle would start over again. I've seen this happen so often, where someone will log in, wait for somebody else to log in just to have someone to talk to. They give up, hang up, and like seconds later, somebody else would log in. It was very bizarre, like just the timing of it. Because it happened so often, it stuck in my mind. I know there was a fire. I set a printer ribbon on fire one time in the room. I'm trying to remember if I actually set the D-Dial on fire. I know we spilled beer in it. I just can't remember if it caught fire. The story was it caught fire, but like, you know, you never let the truth get in the way of a good story. But I believe it may have caught fire. I just can't understand if it did catch fire, how the hell were we still able to use it afterwards? I think we may have just spilled beer in it. It may have smoked, and we just fixed it, as you do. Oh, why you gotta stop there? Didn't have the D-Dial tangent planned, but that was, I liked running the D-Dial. I talked about putting one up for a long time after that. My buddy who ran the D-Dial with me actually got me the equipment, a laptop. I couldn't, there was something missing. I couldn't figure out how to get it to connect, and we never got together to get it up and running. But I would have loved to do that. My face is so itchy. Like I said, there is the D-Dial experience out there. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. It has a presence on Facebook. But if you're into D-Dial, or if you're even curious as to what it's about, you should check it out, even though I'm not giving you a lot of information to go on. I will later, like in my next video, where I'll make a little short explaining what D-Dial was, and because that's got an interesting and robust history of, like, there's like these network of people that met through D-Dial, and there's all this great human drama involved as well, and everybody loves drama. Well, not everybody. So did I cover all my bullet points? I think so. It's hard to tell. Like, I think about it all the time. I know I keep coming back to the time travel thing, because that was like, well, it's not the last thing on the list, but it was the last thing I was going to talk about, because I wanted to talk about determinism first and God and things like that. And it's just funny. So anyway, in case I hadn't covered it already, my design, the thing people make fun of me for, my design for a time machine is not a design for a time machine. I don't have anywhere near the knowledge to build a time machine. What I want to build is actually a temporal transceiver. It's a pretty simple design. I've been working on it for years, not building it. I don't have the spare time, but I have a very solid design worked out. Like, I know what I want to build. I know how to build it. Over the years, I've thought that certain materials would work, and it's been revamped multiple times. Like, it can't be made, like, I guess it could if you're really, really lucky or very, very careful, but initial designs had to do with fluorescent tubes, not the fact that they're fluorescent tubes themselves, just I thought it would be a quick way to get vacuum tubes, not vacuum tubes, but tubes with vacuum the length I need. There's a certain minimum length for the design to work, and 4 foot just about covers it. I need to have multiple tubes under vacuum in a crisscross pattern. Anyway, the whole point is, I think time travel could eventually be achieved, but I think the first steps towards that would be a temporal transceiver. And basically, the way it works, it's like almost a walkie-talkie between the past and the future. I came up with a design years ago, literally years ago. I think I still might have been in my early 20s or a teenager when I had the basic concept down on paper. It's in my notebook, and essentially what it does is it works much like a quantum eraser. Like when I saw the PBS Space-Time episode on the quantum eraser, my jaw just dropped. I'm like, oh my god, that's like 90% of my design. They're you add a couple of parts and you have my temporal transceiver, and it just blew my mind. It's like, Jesus, like I'm being so lazy. Science is going to get past me. Like I'm not a scientist. I don't have a lot of knowledge. I've just like done a lot of research, and it doesn't stick. So I've got to take these notes. So I've got all these notes that I have to keep referring to, because it's like the things that you do daily stick in your head. Like I know this is a all-encompassing thing that I'm interested in, but it's not part of my job. It's not necessary for my survival. It's time travel is a hobby for me. So I'm not specialized. I just grab the little nuggets of information I need from these different disciplines, and I try to apply them to my design. And over the years, like I've figured out the materials I need to use. I need to know what kind of powers I need to use. Like there's lasers involved, which makes it very exciting. And all it really does is it lets you receive a message before you send it. And I even, out of an abundance of caution, built into the design safeties, meaning that try to avoid any kind of not that I think a paradox would destroy the universe or anything like that, but I don't want the initial designs to have the possibility of paradox until I fully understand them. So one of the things is, like, once the machine's set in motion, so let's say it's 5 o'clock, I'm going to send the message at 6 o'clock. At 6 o'clock, the message gets sent. Like, I can receive it at 5 o'clock, but once you turn, like, let's say it's 4:50, you turn on the machine, you receive that message at 5 o'clock. It's received. Maybe it's printed, maybe it's just etched onto something, and it's behind a plate. And then at 6 o'clock, the message gets sent, which was received at 5 o'clock and got etched on the plate or printed on the piece of paper. So the initial things, like, you're not even allowed to say it. Like, it happens, you hear it happen, paper drops, blah, blah, blah. Like, you get locked out of the machine. Like, if I want to go overboard, it gets into, like, a bomb-proof room, so, there's an uninterruptible power supplies, because you don't want the machine to get destroyed after you receive the message. Now, I'm thinking it's probably impossible for that to happen, because that would be a paradox. You would think that if the message is received, it's a pretty good shot that for the next hour, the machine won't be destroyed. I'm not giving away too many details, like I'm not saying how it works or anything like that, but it's believe it or not, once you know the way the machine is built and the concepts that it works on, it seems pretty straightforward. That being said, that means I'm probably being naive and it won't work the way I think it should. But we won't know until I build it and try it. But anyway, that's when I talk about my time machine, I'm really not talking about a time machine. I'm talking about a temporal transceiver, which is also just as unbelievable. It works. We know from quantum physics that information can get sent into the past. But that's one of the things I was talking about earlier, how the universe conspires to make things not be useful in that kind of way. Like, we have a concept of, like, linear time motion and things like that, and the universe keeps doing things. And I talk about the universe like it's a character, but I think you get the gist of what I'm saying. But the universe conspires to not let any of that cool stuff happen, all that stuff that seems contrary to reality, like on those kind of scales. But we do know, we've done experiments, we know that information can be sent to the past. It's just in a very convoluted way. And like I said, if you want to understand what I'm talking about, just Google the quantum eraser experiment, and you'll see about 85 to 90% of the machine that I've been designing for a good portion of my life. So I think I've exhausted all the bullet points, and I think I went off on some separate tangent that I hadn't even planned on. Oh yeah, D-dial. It's like funny stuff. Like, besides putting up D-dials, like I was really into computers when I was a kid. I remember when I was very young, before home computers were like really a thing. I remember when the Odyssey came out, Odyssey 2. My first computer game, like it's a bizarre coincidence that there was the Odyssey, which was a yellow Pong machine that you could hook up to your TV. It had 3 settings. It was a big thing with 2 knobs, so you could play 1 player or 2 player, and it was all the same game. It was all Pong with either extra paddles or a goal. And I think it was like tennis, hockey. I don't know what the 3 games were, but they were all based on the dot and the 2 pipes. You could play doubles tennis, which means you had 2 pipes on either side. But that was my first video game. I'm sure it was prohibitively expensive for my parents when I was a kid, but they got it for me. It just is so funny, like the difference, like how big and like the electronics were in that, like how big that thing had to be what it was. And I know even before that, little processors and stuff like that, like, probably take a computer the size of a warehouse, whatever. But anyway, Odyssey was my first one. Like, a game system I got after that was the Odyssey 2, which more people would probably be familiar with, which was a really neat game system. Again, like the Atari, if you're familiar with it, very, very blocky graphics. But I loved what all the old, like, I guess they're 8-bit systems, I don't know what they're called, but all those old games back then, like they had, like Casey Munchkin. I think there was actually a lawsuit about that. Casey Munchkin was the Odyssey's answer to Pac-Man. It was Casey Munchkin, Casey's Crazy, and there was, like, the way they tried to get away with not saying it wasn't Pac-Man, like the dots would move. Like, you would be running around, but the dots would jiggle around. They would like slide down the hallways and stuff like that. But it was Pac-Man. There's like just there's no getting around it. The game was Pac-Man. But there was Casey Munchkin, Casey's Crazy Chase, Lord of the Rings. There was these big epic ones, Lord of the Rings, and there was this land, air, sea battle one, and these are big box games, which means they came with a board. You didn't need it. You could play the games without the board, fold out paper board and like these little tokens and stuff like that. But it added. But my point is, what I'm getting at is the artwork. Like Atari, Odyssey, like they had these games, and the artwork on the box was this unbelievable artwork. Like, they just high detailed things, like to kind of give you the concept of what the storyline is behind it. But it's so funny that like the actual games, like, like a person is a square for a head, 2 little pixels for arms, like, a little rectangular body, unicolor, like no like, your character's all one color, but like, it's just, I always thought it was funny. Like, I don't think it's false advertising either. Like, I get what they're doing. They're getting the concept of the game across, but, and, you use your imagination while you're playing the game. No, you don't. You just play the game because it's fun. But yeah, the concept art has very little to do with the actual gameplay. Kind of reminds me of, romance novels, like the covers they make, like just kind of give you an idea what you're supposed to think about while you're reading the book. So I was talking about computers. I didn't mean to go into the computer game thing. It's like, so I I used to sell POS systems, point of sale for build and sell. So I would make build and sell point of sale systems for like retail outlets, and I would also build and sell personal computers back when there were like 75 megahertz chips or something like that. Like I think I was building 386 machines, 75 megahertz 386 machines when I started. Me and a guy, we got together and we started doing this. Probably could have done it without the guy. Probably should have done it without the guy. But anyway, we'll burn that bridge when we get to it. So anyway, yeah, I used to do that. In fact, I used to sell. I sold a few people I worked with, and I still work with one of them actually. And this is decades later. I've been lucky. I've had long-term employment. In fact, I'm working in the same industry I was working in when I was 17. I got a co-op right out of high school because I finished. It's a long, convoluted story, but my senior year I didn't have any classes, so I went out on co-op to a company, a bearing company, and I went out because another guy from my school had gone out. What is this guy? You're doing 25 miles an hour in a 45 mile per hour zone. Some of us have to get to work. Seriously, dude, the road's not even wet. What are you doing? There should be a minimum. He's doing fine. I don't care. Do I care? What time is it? I care a little. I always get nervous. I accidentally touch something. You know, if you touch the power knob on the radio, it turns off. So, where was I? What was I talking about? Computers. So I still work with one of the guys. I got a job at a bearing company out of high school. Worked there for 11 years. Quit. Helped build a transportation branch of another company, which I've talked about. And then during that time, a woman was murdered, and I found her. I'll tell that story a different time. But in the act of me finding her, my name ended up in the newspaper. Because my name ended up in the newspaper, coincidentally around the same time, this was a couple years after a company had bought the company that I had worked for. Another bearing company absorbed the company I used to work for, and they were having trouble getting the two lines. And one of the engineers said we should find Chris and bring him back, because I was very good with the product line. I was very knowledgeable because I started as a draftsman, became an engineer essentially in the company. For a while, I was the entire engineering and drafting team in this company. Like I had the entire floor to myself for quite a while. So I was the only engineer. I did the calculations. I did the drawings. So anyway, Bill decided they should find me. He found me very quickly because my name was in the paper, because I had found a murder victim behind, in the lot behind the company where I work. At the end of the day, before I would leave, I would always walk the grounds. I'm not sure why I got into that habit. I guess it's where I work. I take pride in my company. I want to make sure everything's okay. So I would just walk the perimeter, make sure everything's cool before I would leave for the day. And one day, found this dead woman. Shot in the face, actually. Terrible. Funny stories related to that. How horrible. But I'll tell those another time. So anyway, he found me, and long story short, I begrudgingly came back to not really the same company, but a different company. And I've been there for now, I want to say 17 years. I want to say Hot Fudge Sunday too, but that wouldn't make any sense. I want to say like 17-ish years. So I've been really, really lucky. I know a lot of people don't have long-term employment like that. So it's not lost on me how lucky I am to have been able to stay in a single book. And it's really important too, because I am terrible at writing resumes. It's a painful experience. I hate writing resumes. So I still don't think I got to the point. What was I talking about? Worrying there. I talked about computers. I still work with a guy. So anyway, I was building and selling these 75-inch computers. One of the things you run into, these were older style computers. A lot of these are people's first computers, and stuff was glitchy back then. So when people would run into problems, since they bought it from me, and since I'm friends with them, I'm readily available. And I learned early on you really shouldn't do computer repair or maintenance for friends and family, because I don't mind doing it, but it becomes your life. I have a lot of family. They didn't buy computers from me, but they find out that this is years ago. They find out you know about computers, and all of a sudden, you're just going from uncle's house to aunt's house, just solving computer issues, and that's a nightmare. But anyway, a funny story is one of the guys I sold a computer to, not the guy I still work with, but another guy. I sold him a computer, and one of the interesting things is that I don't know if you know this, it depends on how old you are. Windows, the operating system Windows, used to come on a lot of disks. At the time I was selling computers, I believe they were on 3.5 floppies, and you would get a brick of disks to install it. You'd have to put in disk 1, disk 2, disk 3, and so on. You might have seen a pattern from me there. I want to say 17 disks. I don't remember how many there were, but it was a ridiculous amount of disks. And so a lot of my computer maintenance just had to do with just reinstalling Windows because they had done something horrible. One particular example is I had a friend at work, or a co-worker. You shouldn't have friends at work. I had a friend at work that I sold him a computer. He's using it. It stopped working. So obviously there's not a lot of computer repair places around at the time. And he bought it from me, and I work with him every day, so I'm the guy. So I go to his house to figure out what's wrong with his computer, and the operating system's not working. Well, it turns out, sometimes you have to be an investigator to find out what's wrong with the computer, especially if it just will not, the operating system is just not working. Well, it turns out his daughter was heavily into Sailor Moon, and she loved everything about Sailor Moon. And so she would, any content that she could find on the interwebs, she would download it and store it on the computer. Well, she ran out of space, and you're thinking, oh, okay, so the computer's not working because there's no more hard drive space, you don't have any room for virtual memory, that's what's wrong. No, you're completely wrong. She started deleting parts of the operating system. She deleted files that she didn't recognize because she assumed if she didn't recognize them, they weren't that important. This happened more than once. So, that's so multiple times I had to go reinstall Windows on a machine because someone had deleted part of Windows, which is absolutely crazy. I mean, it's back, if you don't know, you don't know. I say it's crazy. It's it seems completely reasonable. Now that I think about it, you would think, hey, shouldn't she was probably thinking the same thing. The operating system is a really important, I wonder if anyone has thought of this. The operating system is a really important part of the operation of the computer. Why would you have all those files just lumped in with all your other files? All your, pictures and videos and documents and, other programs. You would think it would be tucked away in a place that was protected. Even if it's on the same drive, why would you give the user the ability to delete it? Why did I slow down? It was a yellow. I could have made it through. And I know now some people do. Some people have a dedicated boot drive that just has their operating system, usually a solid state drive, and then they have other things. But yeah, now that I think about it, that is kind of weird that the operating system itself wasn't protected by, like, just on its own separate drive, just a partition on the computer. I should have thought of that. I didn't think of that at the time. It just never occurred to me. Like, I didn't put myself in the other person's shoes. It never occurred to me that someone who doesn't know a lot about computers won't realize that it's dangerous to delete files that they don't know what they are. That's probably still true today. I wonder if, I have a computer right now, and I can tell you I can just destroy the operating system in 2 seconds after turning on the computer if I wanted to. So I don't think they've handled that. I mean, I know how to do it because I know how to do it, but anyone who doesn't know how to do it could just easily do the same thing by mistake. So, yeah, that's funny. I now that I think about it, that would have been a nice feature to have. Either the operating system on a virtual disk inside the regular hard drive, or just like lock the files. Don't allow them to be deleted. Hide them. Maybe it caused problems with access for other programs and stuff like that at the time. I don't know. But I can't imagine no one else thought of that. I'm upset that I didn't think about it. If I ever do this over again, I'm going to try to remember when I install Windows onto people's drives, I'm going to create a virtual drive, compartmentalize the drive, and just keep the operating system in a separate section. I don't know if you could do that with that old version of Windows. The guy I still work with, he was having trouble with his computer. This is an amusing little anecdote. So he was getting so mad that he was threatening to throw his computer through my window, and that's not cool. I'm trying to remember what was wrong. It was a similar situation where I just had to keep going over his house and reinstall Windows, but he was having real problems. Like, it wasn't virus issues. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, it kept crashing, and it wasn't something I could reproduce. The computer would work when I was there, which added to his frustration. Like, I would open it, and I think part of what upsets people is I have a weird sense of humor. So back then they had CD drives, and we called them cup holders and stuff like that. And I would open it for some reason, and I would tell them never do this, and I would close it by pushing on it instead of pushing the retract button. Never do this; it'll destroy your computer. And unfortunately, some people just don't get it. It is a bad idea to do that. You won't destroy your computer. You could destroy your tray. Like, if you would apply too much pressure, you're going to misalign the gearing on there. I'm a professional. I knew what I was doing, and it was worth, like, risking breaking the CD drive was worth it to me because it was funny, like, to tell people never do this and then do it. So it's just pouring gasoline on the fire. So anyway, since the issue would never repeat while I was there, the last time I came to repair his computer, reinstall the operating system, I actually brought a tiny picture of myself and taped it inside the case facing the motherboard. It never broke again. I know it's coincidental. I know the two aren't related. It's just funny. I don't know if I said keyboard or motherboard there, but I meant to say motherboard if I accidentally said keyboard. Like, taped it inside the case of the computer facing the motherboard. When I finish these videos, I do, I've mentioned this before, there's a tiny bit of post-processing I do, and that's why the color is the way the color is. I'm actually kind of curious as to whether or not that increases the file size significantly, and I wonder if that has anything to do with the amount of time it takes for it to upload. I want to keep some consistency with the look of these for now, so I'm still going to do it, but at some point I'll do an experiment where I don't do that. Unfortunately, I don't know if I can copy. I don't want to waste too much time on this. Once I get to work, I have to work. I don't have any free time. I have enough time to push like 2 buttons on my phone, which processes the video, and then after that's done, which takes a little while, I hit a couple more buttons on my phone, I push it off to the side, and I just like let it upload all day. At the end of which it'll be at 25%, and then when I get home, the last there'll be, when I'm driving home, there's generally somewhere between 7 and 14 hours left to upload. Once I get home, it finishes uploading in about an hour. I really should look into seeing if, I wonder if I should just connect to the public Wi-Fi. No, I can't believe I even said that out loud. It's never a good idea. Never ever connect to public Wi-Fi anywhere. Like when you're leaving the house, put a note by your door, turn off your Wi-Fi, turn off your Bluetooth unless you need it for the car. Like never connect to public Wi-Fi, ever, for any reason, unless you absolutely have to, and then still don't. Should I go into the reasons why? No. I'm not going to tell you why. Just trust me. To turn off your Wi-Fi when you leave the house. You don't really, especially if you don't intend on connecting to any other kind of Wi-Fi, but just as you're leaving the house, just, if you've got an iPhone, it's so simple. You just like pull down, you got all these like little choices, just turn off your Wi-Fi. While you're there, you might as well turn off your Bluetooth too. I think modern iPhones, they're going to turn themselves back on in 24 hours anyway, if you do it that way. So in case you forget to do it, and you're concerned about, data rates and things like that when you get home by accidentally not using your Wi-Fi, you can just, when you go in the door, look at that note again. It says, like, if you're leaving the house, turn off your Wi-Fi. If you're entering the house, turn on your Wi-Fi. It's a good habit to get into. And all habits only take 3 weeks. If you do something for 3 weeks, you can establish it as a habit. You just have to make it through those first 3 weeks. Why was I talking about Wi-Fi? Oh, I was talking about the video, the processing. More meta, more like self-referential, like I am this video and I'm talking about this video. This video is self-aware. It knows what's going to happen to it. It doesn't. It's just, you're just watching me talk. Well, that's pretty. Some people still have their Christmas lights up. Should we talk about Greta Thunberg? Did I make a promise to keep this non-political? Oh my God, I can't see. There we go. The roads here are slightly damp, which makes them, like, it's amazing how much darker it is when the roads are wet. I don't know what the story is, that they absorb more light, whatever, but like, I'm slightly night blind because as a kid, for me, it was a sport to stare at the sun. In case there was any thought in your mind that I was slightly intelligent, I'm not. I used to stare directly at the sun, and now I have night blindness, and I really love looking up at the stars and stuff like that, and unfortunately, there's, like, unless unless they're very bright stars, I can't see. In the center of my vision, I can't see them. Like, I have to look at things when it's dim. I often have to look next to them and just kind of catch them in my peripheral vision, because if it's dim and I look directly at something, I can't see it. And that is because I am a dumbass. So yeah, when I look up at the stars at night, like, there's always this void. I'm always looking exactly at a void. Like, there's all these great stars, except for exactly where I'm looking. And like I said, unless I'm looking at a significantly bright star, then I can see it. But it's dimmer than it would be if it's just slightly out of my center of vision. So remember, kids, don't stare directly at the sun or a reflection of the sun. Here's an interesting fact I learned. I'm calling it a fact because I believe it's true. I haven't tested it. Kind of made sense the way I explained it. I'm not going to get into all the detail of it, but you know how you can you can burn paper with like a magnifying glass. You get a good sized magnifying glass. You focus the rays of the sun, and you can burn the paper. And I pretty much thought, like, except for like Planck length, I thought that was infinitely focusable, meaning that if you take any light source, you could just focus it down to the point where it could ignite. Well, it turns out that this isn't true. Apparently, from what I saw, and I have to do further research, but I can't believe that this source would lie to me. I think I saw it in one of the science channels I follow on YouTube, that you can never make a focused point any warmer than the surface of the source that's emitting the light. Meaning that if you tried the same trick on the moon, like to try to start a fire with the light from the full moon, you could never do it, because the warmest you're ever going to get that focal point is whatever the surface temperature of that object is, the moon being that object. Since it's not, over 451 degrees on that surface of the moon, you're never going to get that point hot enough to cause combustion. I thought that was fascinating, because I would have, like I said, I just assumed you're focusing it down, you're intensifying it, but apparently the maximum is the temperature of the object emitting the light. So I guess you can get the focal point pretty close to the surface temperature of the sun if you're magnifying the sun. It's obviously very easy to get it up to paper burn-in temperature, which is 451. I wonder how many people remember that because it's the temperature at which paper burns, or if they remember that just because the book Fahrenheit 451. I've read a lot of books that turned into movies. One book, which I thought was really good. The movie wasn't bad either, even though it had, is that Dennis Hoffman? I'm not good with names. Anyway, Jackson and Hoffman. I don't know names. Anyway, Sphere. I remember reading Sphere, and it was a page turner. I think it's one of those books that I read over the course of the weekend. I couldn't put it down. Like, I wanted to get it done. It was really good. And like, I know there's certain things you can do in books that you can't necessarily do in a movie, and like I don't want to be one of those like freaking pedantic nerds that like, oh, the book was much better than the movie. The book was much better than the movie. There was a lot of stuff that happened in the book that I guess they really couldn't do in the movie. Like I remember, like, it's weird having watched the movie and having read the book. Like, it's initially I didn't like the movie because it was different. Like the movie that played in my head when I was reading the book had different characters. They looked different. They talked different. And there was a lot of visuals that were in the book that they didn't do in the movie. Like a lot of playing with reality. Like if you saw the movie, there's a scene in the book where I guess there's a line of people in cryo, and one of the characters that has now got that power of God, like literally just, I think he changed them like from men to women and back again. Like he just like literally just through the power of his mind, he changed the gender of the people along the bank. And I guess part of it is there's in the story, I think it's hard to do internal dialogue. Like when you're having, like you can write it, like you can write what someone is thinking, and that comes across very well on the written. Oh, that's the other thing I was going to talk about. Comes across very well on the written page, but like when you're trying to translate the same thing into a movie, it's a very rigid structure. In your brain, you can like just keep tweaking as you're reading. You keep tweaking the image to make it seamless and make it make sense and make it pretty. And I know directors try to do the same thing visually, but you're kind of locked in. And certain things I don't think would be as easy to pull off. Like it's kind of a complex concept what was going on in the character's head and what he was doing, having that godlike power. Crap! I lost it. I had it and I lost it. One of those things. The written word. Yeah, so talking about determinism and existential crisis, things like that, again, I can't define. One of the things I talk about with my viewer, I've mentioned this a few times, like when I talk about determinism, like, I don't believe in reality. Like, I don't, multi-layered, like I don't believe anything exists. I don't believe in any of this, but then in this that exists, because obviously it's here you're watching me talk about it, I believe in determinism. And my analogy for the thing is, like, I don't want to live in a deterministic universe. I want to have free will. I want to be able to say that, like, I'm the master of my own destiny. And, like, you are, like, like, for all intents and purposes, like, where you are, you might as well just assume that you have control over your own destiny. You make the world what you want it to be, by acting, like, by getting a job, getting money, making good decisions. I don't believe any of that. I believe this is all deterministic. I was going to do what I was going to do. There's no getting around it. I'm glad that I appear to be a good person. Like, I seem to do the right things. I try to be polite, blah, blah, blah. But my point is, my analogy is like, because we have self-awareness, consciousness, it creates that illusion, like that illusion of free will, when this could very well just be a script. This could be a very well-written book. Just because we feel like we're flesh and bone and we're experiencing this 3D, 4D universe with time, it doesn't mean that it's not scripted and not deterministic. So it's like, I often hear myself rambling about stuff like this, and I think about, like, someone reading this as if it's a book, and like me in their head being the words that they're reading. Like they're imagining this movie with me, or pictures in their head. They're reading a book, and I'm saying this, and like I'm a fully fleshed out, sophisticated personality, but I'm just words on a page. And no matter how sophisticated or how well written I am, I can't get off the page. And like my thought is there, like, as this self-aware, conscious being living in deterministic words already written, is there any way to change anything? Like, and there's not, like, there may not be. Like, should I just sit back, enjoy the ride, and live a happy life, or should I just keep torturing myself with these thoughts about like how I feel trapped in a deterministic universe? I know I'm just words on a page, and I don't know how to get off the page, and constantly thinking about how do I do that? How do I stop being the written word and become a real boy? I don't know if that makes sense. I mean, I know it makes sense. I know what I'm talking about. I just like, when I say that to people, there's very few people I say that kind of stuff to, and it goes more into depth and stuff like that. And they get that weird look, you know, that kind of glaze in their eyes, and the one foot turns. Like, you know, when someone wants to get out of a conversation with you, like when they're intent in talking to you, both their feet are facing you. When they are suddenly uncomfortable and they want to end things, they start to do things. They'll shift their body slightly. One foot will start to point away, and if you pay attention, that's the direction they're going to go. So if you really want to torture someone, always shift in the direction that their foot is pointing. Definitely escalate the conversation when they start to feel awkward. Just like, you know, at that point, that's when you want to start laying on some stuff, and like run-on sentences are helpful. Try not to let them say anything. If they look at their watch, wait till they put their arm back down and ask them what time is it, because they won't know. They were just looking at their watch. They're just trying to give you that impression that they want to get away from the conversation. You know, but it's a subtle body, not so subtle body language thing. People do it all the time, and if you start calling them out on it, like it just becomes even more awkward. It's fantastic. Because they're not doing it on purpose. It's ingrained into their body language. It's one of those things that you do. Just like I said, the foot pointing out. People don't realize they do it, but that's what they do. Like if they need to get out of a conversation, one of their feet will turn and start pointing in the direction that they're going to go. Whether they're going to turn that way or they're just going to walk that way to get away from the conversation. It's fantastic. Anyway, I've been going on and on, and I am at the point where I have to end it, so I apologize. Have a wonderful day.